Are you listening?
Nintendo. It has long been speculated that Nintendo is working on two new models of the Nintendo Switch. The expensive, more powerful, my mommy and daddy buy me everything model, and the cheaper version, because I actually have real responsibilities like a mortgage, insurance, and car payments, Hunter. What do you know about car payments? Kids never grow up. Now, the important thing to remember here is the Nintendo Switch is still 2 years old, and it is still selling incredibly well. In fact, this week, Nintendo announced that the Switch has officially sold over 34 million units, which pushes the Nintendo Switch past the Wii U, GameCube, and the Nintendo 64 in total units sold. But to expand on that just a little bit more, with all of the Nintendo Switch's current success, it is still in 7th place for overall unit sales, behind the Nintendo DS, Game Boy, Wii, 3DS, Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Super Nintendo. So even with the Switch's current success, in Nintendo's eyes, there is plenty of room for improvement. And Nintendo believes that introducing two new variations of the Switch will not only generate new sales, but it will also encourage existing owners to buy a second Switch. Are you kidding me? Now, as far as the two new versions of the Switch go, the more expensive model will include enhanced features, along with the potential to run graphically demanding games, and it will primarily target the hardcore gamer. Whereas the inexpensive model could potentially lose features, like rumble packs, detachable Joy-Cons, or even come out of the gate with zero docking capabilities. Now, it is important to acknowledge that Nintendo has tried this concept out in the past. I mean, both the Nintendo DS and 3DS have had multiple iterations released since their initial launch. And as we saw earlier, the DS has sold over 154 million units, whereas the 3DS has sold over 75 million units across their lifetime on the market. And as for how Nintendo plans on encouraging people to buy the newer models, well, it would seem that Nintendo plans on the Switch to replace the 3DS entirely. In fact, this week, during an investors briefing, Nintendo unveiled its quarterly earnings, forecasts, and new games. But during the investors call, there was zero mention of any first-party software coming to the 3DS. And when Kotaku's Chris Kohler reached out to Nintendo for a comment, a spokesperson from Nintendo said, "We have nothing new to announce regarding first-party software for the Nintendo 3DS family of systems." And honestly, I'm okay with this, because while the Switch can be docked and played on my television, the Switch is a handheld device. 90% of the time I use it, it's in handheld mode. And from Nintendo's perspective, if they gradually stop supporting the 3DS, their hopes is that they can convert the 75 million pre-existing 3DS owners towards buying a Nintendo Switch. And if a cheaper, let's say $150 Switch comes to the market, any pain from converting to a Switch from a 3DS is greatly reduced. But honestly, Nintendo can't just bet their future on new hardware alone. They're going to need new games. And new games is the one thing that Nintendo has plenty of. Already this year, Nintendo has announced exclusives like Super Mario Maker 2, Fire Emblem Three Houses, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Animal Crossing, Metroid, Astral Chain, and Pokemon Sword and Shield. And honestly, if there is one thing that is guaranteed to sell new hardware, it's goddamn Pokemon. Last year, when Nintendo released Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, that game resulted in the sale of over 200,000 brand new Switches sold in the first week of the game's release. So, if Nintendo were to release a $150 cheaper version of the Switch alongside the release of Pokemon Sword and Shield, well, I'll be honest, I failed math in high school, but I can tell you that equals a ton of money. And even though Pokemon Sword and Shield are both releasing in late 2019, according to analysts, the cheaper model of the Nintendo Switch is expected to be revealed much sooner, with the current speculation being June of this year. And even though Nintendo this week confirmed that their E3 Direct will have zero hardware announcements, that very statement within itself confirms that, well, new hardware does exist.